Well, hello and welcome to the Transparency Report today. We're exploring journalism issues related to freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and freedom of expression. My name is Jennifer Karchmer, and I'm the host and producer of the Transparency Report. And of course, you can find more information on my website, which is listed below, and via social media. My guest today is Benjamin Botka. He comes to us straight from St. Louis, which is in the Midwest. So we're glad to have you here today, Benjamin. Some
Thanks
cool
for having
stuff
me.
about Ben. Yeah, well, the first thing we want people to know is that he completed a semester at sea voyage, traveling to 13 countries and 31 cities on 4 continents. So we're going to be happy to talk about that. Really
Absolutely.
interesting studying on a ship with 600 fellow students traveling the world.
Mhm.
In addition, Ben holds a master's degree in communications from Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri. He also holds a bachelor's degree from a prestigious school in Germany. And also, we have some interesting things in common. First of all, we're both SPJ members. We're also members of what's called the International Community. In
Mhm.
fact, we have both now graduated from the Ted Scripps Leadership Institute. So we'll talk a little bit more about your experience.
Sure. Yeah, looking forward to it.
And then also, Ben has worked as an English as a second language teacher in Thailand. So
Mhm.
lots of really good travel. Today, though, we want to focus on some specific things to Ben's background that has to do with entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and of course, I want to give you a chance too to talk about this fellowship in global journalism that's important to you. So, welcome, Ben, from St. Louis.
Hey, everybody, and hello, Jennifer. Thanks for hosting, making this possible. I'm excited to be here and talk to you about myself, but more importantly, about things regarding journalism, and hopefully this will be in vivid and a live conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, just so our audience knows, the reason we met is because we're both members of SPJ, the Society
Mhm.
of Professional Journalists, and we met through what is called the International Committee. Apparently, it's a committee, I'm sorry, it's a community. I'm getting those two mixed up, but basically, it's a group of people who have come together, both SPJ members and others, who believe that international journalism is important. Ben, how about you? What brought you to the community, and what would you like to accomplish in SPJ related to international journalism?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time, the way I got in touch with SPJ, it was a college journalism boot camp at Webster, and that was in the fall of 2013. And then shortly after, a few of my fellow students at Lindenwood the from the newspaper staff, we actually founded a student chapter at Lindenwood. And then that way got to learned a lot about SPJ, what they stand for, and kind of the work they do. We organized a few events, including the First Amendment Free Food Festival, where people came to our property, and which we kind of sealed off. And then once they stepped into our area, they had to relinquish their First Amendment rights. And so that way, we kind of wanted to bring awareness to them what it means to have these freedoms, and not so that they don't take them for granted. And so gradually, I got more involved. I did, as you just said, as you mentioned, the Ted Scripps Leadership Institute in Kansas City in April of last year. It was a 3-day event where we were talking about different types of personalities. We did a personality assessment test, and we talked a lot about what SPJ does. And I think that's the time when SPJ became more tangible as an organization to me, because I realized what they do. And because you can talk about an organization, how many members it has, but it isn't until you actually see their work in person that you actually understand and grasp what they do and also the scope of their work. So that was a great learning experience and also a good networking opportunity. And then later last year, I also went to Nashville for SPJ's big conference, the Excellence in Journalism Conference, where I worked as a reporter. So it's the EIJ News team. And so I did live tweeting and I did live reporting. I interviewed Kara Swisher, who was one of the keynote speakers. And I engaged in a lot of different activities during the conference. It was basically just 24 hours live reporting, a little bit of audio, some tweets and infographics and story writing. And that was also a great learning experience. It was Victor Hernandez who was in charge of the newsroom, and then a few other fellow journalism college students who were a member of the news team. So, and then obviously I was a founding member of the international community. And we've been just trying to further journalism, not just here locally, but around the world, because we're a very, very diverse group, right? So I think the members hail from several countries, and just we've been trying to support SPJ and really think about ways how we can improve journalism, kind of piggybacking on SPJ's already existing efforts, and then multiplying those and amplifying those. And for instance, I've been involved in translating the code of ethics into German, and then other people have also done that in their own native tongues. So just ways to improve journalism and contribute and help people in other countries, fellow journalists mostly.
Oh, very good. It sounds like you're very active in the organization, so it's good to see that energy. In particular, what is the chapter that you belong to? What city are you representing?
I'm representing St. Louis, and there is a pro chapter here. And then some of the members of the pro chapter, they were instrumental in founding the international community. So I think it kind of originated here in a few ways. So there's Carlos Restrepo. Yeah, he was a driving force behind the project early on. And yeah, so that's exciting, just kind of a spin-off. And yeah, to see, I'm excited about the future of the community and where it goes, and what I can learn from it, but most importantly, how it can contribute.
Ben, can you mention something that is a takeaway for you from that Ted Scripps Leadership Weekend? Maybe one kernel that you got that has led you to become a leader within the organization?
Sure. I think one thing that stood out for me was that different personality traits coming together, working together is not only good, but it's actually it helps the whole team effort. So it helped me to appreciate what different people can bring to the table in different settings. It doesn't have to be journalism, but overall. So if you're more the inspirer, or if you're more the contributor, that's everything is important. Everybody plays their role. So just understanding that there are different personality traits and different kinds of personalities that all are important to making a team work, because if all were delegators, then probably none of the work would get done, right? Or if everybody was just waiting to receive or from somebody to be the work delegated to, then that work wouldn't work so well either. So I just gained an appreciation of different character types, what they can bring to the table, and then really that that they're bigger than the sum of the individual parts, so they can work together well as a team.
You can see me digging here through my materials. I'm actually going to pull out my personality assessment right here. Here's mine. Would you be willing to share what your personality assessment was based on the tools that they gave us during that weekend?
Yeah, I did one later. I could dig it out right now. That would take a few seconds since we're
Oh,
live.
that's
I may not be
okay.
able to do that.
Do you remember between
But
being dominance, influence, steadiness, or conscientiousness?
yeah, influence. I was pretty sure I was an I.
Okay.
And inspire. That's how I see myself. So I think one of my four major traits is the capacity for enthusiasm, and then yeah, just being able to get a team going, kind of set the agenda, and then yeah, get the process, initiate the process, and also keep the morale up and the team effort, so that they can keep going even when times, or especially when times get tough.
Nice. Well, we can see the enthusiasm here today. Let's go back to the semester at sea. I think everybody's kind of heard of it in one aspect and knows it's people studying on a ship, but let's get a little bit more detail there, because you actually took the voyage, studied with several hundred other students. Can you give us a typical daily schedule? When do you get up? Where are you
Yeah,
eating? What kind of work are you doing on the ship? Can you tell
sure.
us briefly what that was like?
Yeah, absolutely. So on any day on the ship, meaning going from or being in between countries, a day at sea, you would have typically two classes, and then you would get up. It depends on when your classes would start. So I would always try to get up early, sometimes even for sunrise. And then I'd always make a point to eat outside, because there's nothing better than waking up, going straight to breakfast, and then eating outside, maybe with the ship rocking a little bit, the sun rising, and having a wonderful breakfast that really gets your day started in ways that you can do in a different setting. So that's how kind of the day started for me. And then I usually would go to class. I hands down took one of the best classes in my entire college career on the ship. and because they were all hands-on. So not only were they tailored to the itinerary of the voyage, but they were also, you were able to apply what you learned in the classes in the country. So every class came with a field trip, which was either in the first day or on the last day if in one country. So for my sustainable global entrepreneurship class, for example, we went to a township in South Africa, to a community center, and worked on a project with local youth about how to make human interactions more meaningful, applying design thinking, which is a creative methodology that we were taught in that class. And so out of that session, they even made a video out of it, and we had some very meaningful discussions. And yeah, actually a whole business idea came out of it, and it was a very rewarding and very insightful full day. So that's the class. I kind of digressed a little bit there. And then you would have lunch, and again, I would always opt to eat outside because it's just the best thing you can do. And then the afternoon, either another class or just hanging out with fellow students working on a project. You would have classes every other day, so you would really need to pretty much do some work at least every day, and then just hang out, see what's going on, and really be spontaneous. We had so many amazing people on the ship, from Desmond Tutu, Nobel Prize laureate and um, former bishop of Cape Town, and then Tom Chi, the founder, the guy who was behind Google Glass, and Megan Smith, who's now the C2 of the United States government. So we had all these world leaders on the ship that were there for sometimes for weeks, and it was an opportunity for me to talk to them, attend their office hours, but then also find them in different parts of the ship and just sit down with them and chat for hours about some really interesting things, and have some of the most meaningful discussions I've ever had on the ship. So that's how a typical day would go. And then the evening would always have tons of events, from Sea Olympics to explore seminars where we would learn about the countries that we're going to actually be an informed traveler, not a tourist, and then workshops, and people would play music, and they would play cards till the early morning hours, and you could do stargazing. I mean, it's a really tiny ship, so no escape, but that was good because then you had to take full advantage of everything. And then also some workouts, early morning yoga, and then a workout on the ship with Windward Rock. That was always a ton of fun, and so many other things. Yeah, so
Wow,
opportunities abound.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the nighttime, the stars, or being on the water. And were you ever seasick?
I did get seasick once for just one night. We actually hit a very intense storm between Hawaii and Japan. And it wasn't the worst storm the ship has ever encountered, or the program has ever had in the 50-year history, but it was very intense, to a point where we had, I don't want to lie, but the waves were so big that all the outer decks were closed, and things would fall over in the cabins overnight. You can only sleep on all fours, basically like a snow angel, otherwise you would roll out of your bed. And all the counters, they would open and close, and sleep was hard to come by. So that was basically happening for about 24 hours before it subsided a little bit. But that was a very intense experience. But I didn't get seasick except for that one night, and they always had free pills you could take, and then people were good. But I know one student, she told me at the very end of the voyage that she was seasick about every other day, so that it wasn't as much fun for her.
I guess, yeah, people react differently to the seasickness, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Like
but it was an
anything else.
adventure every day. It's just a really great way of traveling.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like a fascinating experience. Let's now hear about how you've coupled journalism with being an entrepreneur. And what is it that you call yourself? A media entrepreneur? How do you say that? Is
Right.
that,
So mediapreneur is a word that I like to use. I don't have the copyrights to it.
I was going to say, did you coin that? I'm
I
having
wish I
difficulty
did.
pronouncing
I
it,
wish
but
I did.
media entrepreneur. I
Yeah,
mean, it comes
media
from the French, so I'm doing it with the French
mediapreneur.
accent.
Yeah, mediapreneur. Yeah. So yeah, I just like to say what I am is just a blend of an entrepreneur and a journalist. And sometimes they stand on their own, but more often than not, I actually combine them and use both elements of both uh, professions, or whatever you want to call it. So for me, there was always journalism ever since I started going to J school, or since I went to J school in Germany. And I was a generalist early on. I had really a lot of trouble finding one study course that would cover most of my, or as many as my interests as possible. So I found one, a dual bachelor, which is rare to find in Germany, in history and journalism. And I found like for more and more over time that I am really a generalist, and that's led me, not knowing it back then, but in hindsight, led me to down the entrepreneurial path, because that's what entrepreneurs are. They are generalists, and they always have their hands on a lot of different things. They venture into different areas, into different industries, and so. But anyway, so my passion for journalism has been around for quite a while. I would say about a decade, and then entrepreneurship and business really didn't. I was never exposed to it until semester at sea, where we actually had 9 social and tech entrepreneurs sail around the world with us to scale their companies and explore new markets. And that was thanks to a unique program that's called Unreasonable at Sea. And it was basically a floating accelerator that was unique to our specific voyage. And so an accelerator is a program where startup companies get access to funding and a network and best practices and those kind of things.
Thank you. I was actually going to jump in and have you define what is an accelerator.
Right.
That's
and
not
usually,
common
exactly.
knowledge.
Yeah, and the exchange is that they get these services, and then in return they give up a certain equity in their company, right? A certain stake of their company. So that's how it works. It's usually a minor chunk, but then they're exposed to all these, to investment, to great learning opportunities, and to mentoring, and then that way they're able to accelerate the business growth. So that's the whole idea, to go through this program, giving a little bit of your equity, but then be able to scale much faster and actually achieving success. And so a little bit of a backstory. One of the alumni, a semester at sea alum, from who lived in Boulder, after the voyage, he actually founded a stationary accelerator called the Unreasonable Institute, and that's a summer program where about a dozen entrepreneurs, a dozen startups, high impact social entrepreneurs and tech entrepreneurs go through every summer. Same idea, where they have access to mentors and funding and best practices. And then what he realized, though, was most of the problems he's trying to tackle were of global nature. So we're talking about lack of access to clean water, a lack of access to education, and preventable diseases. So he really wanted to impact millions of people. But then he realized that in order to really empower these entrepreneurs to do these things and to achieve those goals, a stationary accelerator was not going to cut it. So he thought, why not put these entrepreneurs on a ship and let them sail around the world, and then have them be exposed to the same mentorship and the same other things that we would also already provide in Boulder, but then the setting would be completely different. So that's kind of the backstory. And so they conceived this problem. They teamed forces with Semester at Sea, and then Unreasonable Institute and Semester at Sea became Unreasonable at Sea. And it was really like a radical experiment in entrepreneurship, something that's never been done before. And I was just really lucky that my voyage was the one where this happened.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
In fact, you had sent me some links, and I read about this Unreasonable at Sea. Just tell the viewers, what is it? What was the concept between being unreasonable, using that in the title? Because that is a little, it may be off-putting to some, like, well, what is this company or this? What does it mean? But where did that concept come from? It's kind of clever.
Yeah, sure. So the idea comes from kind of the tenet that before something becomes mainstream, it's a crazy idea, right? So somebody, the chair we're sitting on, or something even a little bit more sophisticated, somebody had to conceive it first in their mind. So the point I'm trying to make is that somebody who has a unreasonable idea is usually being laughed at and is being told, hey, you can't do that, until that actually happens. And then all of a sudden, maybe sometimes overnight, it becomes mainstream and everybody accepts it as given. So it could be a product service or anything that maybe something, a cultural thing. So in the Unreasonable case, their patron saint is George Bernard Shaw, and he's famous for saying all progress depends on the unreasonable person, man or woman, right? So because entrepreneurs, really what they do, they see the world not for what it is, but for what it could be. And so where ordinary people see problems and challenges, entrepreneurs see opportunities to improve people's lives, to make an existing service or product better, or just to do something, to gain progress and just to start something. And so that's the kind of the backstory, and that's how they were really unsure about the title, but they thought it was very fitting because they considered themselves as misfits, as people who were being laughed at. But then what Gandhi said, I think, is first they want to stop you and they laugh at you, then they want to stop you, and then they trying to prevent you. I'm misquoting him right now, but then you win, right? So behind every concept that's now considered mainstream or normal used to be a crazy or unreasonable idea. But then if you don't have that mindset, then that will never come about. So
All right, well,
that's kind of the
let's
name.
pull you. Thank you for that explanation. Let's pull you in. In one of the articles I read that you wrote about the Semester at Sea and the other organization, I believe you wrote that social entrepreneurism is like a cross between Russell Brand and Mother Teresa. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you can say Russell Brand,
And Mother
Richard
Teresa.
Branson. Yeah, so basically somebody
Tell
who
us
is
what you mean by
interested.
that,
Yeah,
please.
for sure. So what a few things. So they really encompass the idea that being profitable, so being in business, but also doing good is not mutually exclusive. And that was one of the huge realizations for me or something as I learned from this experience is because before that I was not only not really had never been exposed to business, but I never really thought highly of it or thought that I could be an entrepreneur or that it could be actually bring good to millions of people. So, but what I learned that business doesn't only have to be about fancy gadgets. It can be really hands-on relevant applications that help people across the world. So for example, one of the startups we had on board is called Aqua, and they found a way to purify water without the use of chemicals, just with the use of a certain plant. So it's a very scalable solution that's also very, the eco impact is very low, and something that you can actually help communities install, and they can help them help themselves. So in terms of that doing good and being profitable does not only go hand in hand, but it's actually the more profitable you are, the cheaper you can actually offer your product or service, and the more people at the bottom of the pyramid, or BOP as it's called, the more people you can serve. And then because the more money you'll make, the cheaper you can then produce it, and then so you can even reach more people.
So it sounds
So
like it's just
yeah.
mixing up, a traditional business model. Instead of the bottom line being profits, it's this BOP, the bottom of the pyramid, the numbers, the masses of people.
Yeah. So really these markets are really what social entrepreneurs are trying to address, is these high growth markets in developing and third countries. So we're talking about obviously large parts of Africa, Central America, and Southeast Asia. Those are typically the three parts of the world that are mentioned in this context. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. Because the misconception is that, but for many large companies, and that's the reason many of those don't actually go to these markets, is that it's not a profitable market where they can go in and actually make huge profits. Now, this may be true on an individual basis, but collectively, these markets can become highly profitable for companies. So, which is good in the social entrepreneurs case, because they not only become highly profitable, but because they also serve people and really empower them in different ways depending on their product or service. So it is actually it has been an underestimated market for a very long time, but more and more people actually realize the opportunity and the potential in these markets to actually take something and tailor it towards this market, make it cheaper, make it more affordable. Most important, make it practical, right? Because many parts of these parts of the world, they don't have the spare parts to just repair it. So a really sophisticated gadget, even if it helps, they won't be able to repair it once it breaks. So in the Western countries where we're spoiled, we have everything already at disposal. If our car breaks down, we just go to the next shop and get it fixed, right? And then, but that sometimes requires very sophisticated parts, and those parts are not necessarily available in those countries. So just shipping something there that helps them for a little bit, but then they may break it or it breaks on its own, and then they don't have an opportunity to repair it. It may do more good, do more bad than good long term. So that's why very simple simple products that people can repair themselves are actually much better, more suitable for these kind of people and for these kind of consumers.
So here's a question. I don't know if it's too technical or business related, but you seem very well informed and knowledgeable. And I can also see your Toastmasters training coming through. You should consider being a professor too, Ben.
One day.
So the question is, what is the difference between a social entrepreneur or an organization that's into social entrepreneurism and a nonprofit or an NGO?
And a nonprofit.
Is that a fair question? I mean, is a social entrepreneur still under a model that they're making profits, but it's different from traditional?
Well, not necessarily. So it depends on which route you want to go. Not every social entrepreneur is founding a not-for-profit. They could go both routes depending on what's best for their business model and how they can impact more people. So if their business model is best by having a for-profit business, then in order to become more profitable and help more people, then that's certainly something they're not going to say no to that just because they think it's unethical or they don't want to make money with this. Now, typically, their main driving force, their main motivation is not to make money. It's kind of a side product, right? So Richard Branson, I'm not sure how much to a degree he is motivated by money, but obviously more than Mother Teresa, right? So if you combine them, then the social entrepreneur, including the money part, in terms of what motivates them is more the social impact. But in terms of the not-for-profits, I think most social entrepreneurs, some of them, I don't know, have any statistics on that. Some of them certainly, they start a not-for-profit to have an umbrella organization and make it have more structure and be more organized. But then many of them, I think, just have a business and not go ahead and found a not-for-profit. If they see like they can tackle this problem more at scale and it helps them, then certainly. But that's something that would be interesting, worth looking into more. How many social entrepreneurs actually go ahead and found a non-for-profit?
Area for further research.
That's right.
So let's move it to you. You've given us a really nice background, and as I said, I would encourage you to become a professor. We'll teach a class on this. But tell us now, so what is your goal in tying in journalism to this?
Sure. Yeah. So excellent. When I was exposed, or ever since I've been exposed to entrepreneurship, I was really motivated by the work that these people do, and I really started seriously contemplating how I can implement this aspect, what this is going to mean for me down the road, how I can implement it, because I know it made a lot of sense. It had just had this genuine appeal, and I was gravitating towards this a lot, and so I thought, how can I combine journalism with entrepreneurship? And after some thinking, and more importantly, just trying things out, I realized that the mission that I set for myself, my goal is to become a journalist who writes about entrepreneurs, about startups, about innovation, and really put entrepreneurs in the spotlight and put them on a pedestal so that they can be seen by more people. And by people, I mean readers, I mean potential investors, I mean people who want to support them, just people who are interested or inspired by them. Because this is not necessarily different from a regular business, but I feel like especially with social entrepreneurship, there is usually a very, very interesting and fascinating story behind it. Because you're not born a social entrepreneur. Because many of the people I talk to on the ship, they, by happenstance or because they wanted to, they immersed themselves in an environment and saw a problem by happenstance, maybe, from a worm's eye view, as Mohammed Yunus, the social entrepreneur, maybe the original entrepreneur and founder of the Grameen Bank, calls it. So, and that's also the difference between just regular international aid, just dumping aid, either money or goods there, but actually understanding the problem at its root and really understanding what motivates the people, how they can effectually solve this problem. And so there's a very deep desire burning in most entrepreneurs who want to solve a problem, who have seen it with their own eyes, how people suffer or how their lives could be better because they have a solution and they can help those people. So it's not self-interest, it's really about helping a lot of people. And you don't do that in a classroom setting. That's why Semester at Sea was so powerful, because we talked about social entrepreneurship a ton, but then we also saw it in action. We saw these people in the environment, in the community, empathizing with the people, learning what drives them, what challenges they're facing every day, and then coming up with something that, hey, I think I can help these people. And then in most cases, they were not even planning on doing that, or going there to find something, but then they stumbled upon it more or less by happenstance in many cases, and then decided to really dedicate a majority of the time to solving this problem. And that's really fascinating. So I'm not just interested in writing about the product or writing about its effects, but really about the story behind it, about the motivation, and then inspiring other people in the process, maybe to contribute to the cause. Maybe they have an own idea, but they never follow it through because they thought, oh, maybe I can't do it. Maybe, no, I don't think I have the right environment. I don't have the connections, or I don't have the abilities to do that. But one of the main things I learned is that if you set your mind to it, anything can be done. And if you see something wherever you are in your life by coincidence, and you see something that's worth pursuing, then by all means go for it, because you're going to figure it out as you go. And so I want to encourage more people to do that, and then also help the existing entrepreneurs. That's my mission.
So,
yeah.
and is the journalism piece, like, that's your beat? You want to write about it from a journalism perspective? And then why, I guess, why call it journalism versus, I don't know, another type of writing or coverage, I suppose?
Right. No, absolutely. So in this case, yeah, you're right. My beat is entrepreneurship. And so I cover entrepreneurship as a journalist. But it goes a little bit beyond that, because I also see myself as an entrepreneur. And entrepreneur is not necessarily a profession as I see it. It's more a mindset. It's seeing opportunities where other people see challenges. It's as I said before, seeing the world for what it could be, not for what it is, and really have a problem-solving attitude. And so that's kind of the mindset that I bring to the table. And I think that it will come through in my writing. That it will be, yes, it will be the information, but it will also be inspirational. It will be about the people, and it will be solution oriented. And that's kind of that's where it goes beyond just merely covering entrepreneurship. That's also where I not only bring more to the table because I know a ton about it, I've seen it, I've done some things on my own as business project, but then also so being able to write about it in a more intimate way, in a more way that people actually think, okay, this guy, he's an entrepreneur himself, right? And so because if so many sports commentators, the great ones, they've actually, many of them have pursued the sports themselves. So because it's a difference between just knowing something intellectually or actually having it experienced yourself. You're able to be able to relate to it and then convey it on a whole different level.
Oh, nice. So it's excellent to bring that experience to the table, whether you're going to continue in print or broadcast. Let's talk about this fellowship in global journalism. You're going to start in September. What was the application process like? What did you use as your application? I'm wondering if it's this as a project. And yeah, tell us what you're supposed to be doing for a year. I'm sure you're supposed to produce something.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Skills need to be applied. So yeah, but thanks. I'm going to start with the application. That was actually the most rigorous application I've ever submitted. And that was one of the reasons why I was so excited about it. Was I thought, wow, if it's so demanding, then it must really be a world-class opportunity. And I really think it is. So I had to write a whole reported story, 600 to 800 words, which is kind of the feature story format that most media outlets have. And then 2 story proposals, and then also how I would treat the existing story that I wrote in visually. I also had to record myself for 1 minute, telling what I want to get out of the program and how I see my career progressing afterwards, what my ultimate goal is, sort of. And then also an essay where I had to write what motivates me, kind of the underlying causes of what attracts me to journalism, and then specifically to the program. So a few letters of recommendation and a few other forms, and I may have missed or an additional item or two, but it was very time and work intensive. But I was glad to do it. As any application is always a good learning experience. And so that was back in February, and I thought I wouldn't have made it because they took longer than expected to get back to the applicants. And then they said, hey, you actually selected for the next round. And they interviewed me. It was a 30-minute interview. And they asked me how I would treat a certain story, if I was comfortable kind of starting over, sort of, because they teach you very fundamental skills. And even if you're already a little advanced in your career, I'm not that advanced, but I have I already went through J school. I have some real world experience that just to be able to be wrong and to be willing to learn. And so that went pretty well, and they accepted me into the program. And so I will actually start the fellowship, which starts with a 5-week boot camp in early September in Toronto, Canada. And during those 5 weeks, I will learn some journalism fundamentals from writing, pitching, some audio, news gathering skills, and the art of interviewing. And so some really fundamental but really important skills, freelance skills as well. And and then in the meantime, also in those 5 weeks, also start interacting with the media partners of the program. So we're talking about the Boston Globe, the Dallas Morning News, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, just to name a few. And after the 5 weeks, I will actually return to St. Louis, and then 6 months from then, so from October through April, my job, or what they expect and what I want to do, is pitch and then hopefully write a high volume of stories for these media outlets that will then be published online or print. And I think that's just a tremendous opportunity to hone my writing skills and to build my portfolio and build a network of editors and other journalists. So I'm very excited and grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, that's wonderful. So after the boot camp, you come back to St. Louis. Is that where you stay, or then you travel for a year? Or what's the length of the fellowship?
Right. So the overall length is actually 2.5 years. I will graduate already next April upon completion of the second part, which also involves online classes. So after the boot camp, I will still take classes, but they will all be done online. And then obviously, in addition to that, I will pitch and report stories. And then 2 years after that, I will actually receive additional coaching and mentoring, and I will keep in touch with all these people, and hopefully then, not on a pro bono basis anymore after that, actually keep pitching and reporting stories as a freelancer and actually get paid for it. But I think it's a good investment up front, and then that will pay off later.
Yeah, we have to admit journalism is good for the social climate, but at the same time, there are bills to pay, and there is a business model that
Yes.
goes with the profession.
And
What a
that's where
wonderful
entrepreneurship
opportunity.
comes
Yeah,
in too, right?
exactly. Good
Because
to have
you
those
can't,
skills.
yeah, because you can't just afford to think about just how to write a story. You also need to think about how to disseminate it, how to engage your constituents, how to monetize it, and those kind of things. And I think that's where the entrepreneurial mindset really helps a lot, not just with journalism, but any other profession as well.
Hey, and just as a sidebar, because we're talking about cities, you've done quite a bit of travel, Ben. Originally from Germany, what city, where were you born, and then how did you come to the United States?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in northern Germany, flanked by both the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. So that was part of Germany where I grew up. And then I went south to go to college, and did that for 3 years. Bachelor's in Germany is only 3 years, not 4 years. And then in early 2012, I came over to the U.S. to attend grad school. Yeah.
Oh, so you've just been in the U.S. for a few years now, it sounds
Just
like.
3.5 years. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and how are you enjoying it?
Well, I would already be somewhere else if I wasn't enjoying it. I definitely like the entrepreneurial aura, I would say, not aura, but the climate. Germany is pretty, the mentality, the culture is, Germans are on average very adverse to risk. Traditionally speaking, historically speaking, there are different reasons for that. I think it's just second behind Singapore in the risk aversion scale, and the US is all the way on the other side. So it's not like nobody's ever going to belittle your ambitions and talk down, or not that some bureaucracy is going to make it hard for you to get your own company up and running. But I feel like it's more supportive and it's more innovative, and it's no surprise that some of the biggest tech companies in the world are US companies. So it's the US, especially the Valley, but I would say across the country now, especially nowadays, is really that the US is still at the bleeding edge of innovation and things that are happening that are being adopted in the rest of the world. So it's exciting to be here. I don't want to become too fixated on the US, because I consider myself a global citizen, and I like to experience and live in different parts of the world. But for now, I've established a very good network, and especially St. Louis, I feel like it's at the bleeding edge of so many things right now when it comes to social issues, Uber trying to get a foothold right now in St. Louis. That's going to become a big story nationwide, and so many other things. So I feel like, although it's not the biggest city in the US, I feel like I'm going to have access to a lot of stories locally that are not only of regional or national interest, but even of global interest. So I don't have to do that much traveling, I hope. Or I mean, if I do, that's fine, but I don't have to travel internationally to report relevant stories from St. Louis after the boot camp.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, St. Louis, one of our great cities. Are there areas in the U.S. that you still need to travel to? I mean, have you done New York? Have you been to San Francisco?
I have, but there's always more. That's the one thing. One of the biggest things I learned from semester at sea is actually how little I know. You grow up and your surroundings are really your measuring stick, and you think, oh, this is how it is elsewhere in the world, and you don't really know what you're missing until you actually see it. And then it's the same. You have a few questions, and you go to a new country, and you leave with even more questions. So the more you know, the more you'll want to know, and the more curious you become. So it's like a never-ending story, and that's great about it, because learning never stops, and you never stop. You can never. There's always opportunity to grow every day and to learn more about the world, about yourself. So I've seen a few things, but in the process, I've just realized how little I know and how little I've seen. So there's just so much left to do.
Well, you've got a curious mind. Sounds like the characteristics of a real journalist.
Yeah, I would
Well,
say that is a non-negotiable for journalists, for sure.
right. I have to go back and mention that my reference to one of your articles, just so sorely and egregiously, I misspoke on who your analogy was: Mother Teresa and Richard Branson. And tell us
Hmm.
who Richard Branson is. I did
Yeah,
not mean Russell Brand.
Russell Brand. Yeah.
Is he a comedian? What do we call him?
Russell Brand, I
Is a
he
character.
is a yeah, he is a fashion mogul, if I remember correctly.
But
Growing
he's
up in the
not
Bronx.
Richard Branson, is who
No,
you meant.
Richard
So who is
Branson. Yeah.
that? And
So
why the reference to him in social
sure,
entrepreneurism? And then
sure.
we'll move on to our final portion.
Sounds good. So real quick, so Richard Branson is one of the preeminent entrepreneurs in the world, on the same level as Tesla's Elon Musk and Amazon's Jeff Bezos. So he built Virgin record stores, right? That's what he started as. But then the Virgin stores evolved into a multi-billion, multi industry business. So he went on to disrupt the airline industry. He founded Virgin Atlantic that competed big time against the British airline, what's it called? British Airways. And then he founded Virgin Galactic, and really a portfolio of companies. And he has really excelled in so many different industries that will now benefit him, obviously, in terms of his experience in multiple industries. So he is just a jack of all trades, as you say, right? Yeah,
That makes much more
yeah,
sense, coupling him with
yeah,
Mother Teresa.
right. So yeah, that's and so hence the comparison. So a social entrepreneur is both profit oriented, because at the end of the day, that's what how business works, but he is also about being socially responsible and environmentally conscious, and just combining these traits, right? So really the goal is they how they measure success is not how much social entrepreneurs, how much products they sell, but how big the impact is. And so it's all about the scale, right? So the more things, the more of what they do, the larger the impact. So and again, it's not about selling a gadget. It's really just about finding something that can improve people's lives, and that's the main motivation behind these people, what they have. Yeah, go on.
Heck knows we don't need more gadgets.
No,
I mean, I
that,
don't. I'm still using the iPhone 4.
right. Yeah, I'm all about simplifying my life. I mean, you can just always add things, but then technology, that's the crux. You add more technology in order to simplify your life, but then it comes to a point where it actually you use so much technology, then it kind of comes out of hand, and then you just actually invest more time than you wanted to save.
A little counterintuitive. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap up here in a moment. I'm going to ask you a few more questions, Ben, but is there anything burning atop your mind that we didn't get to that you want to mention?
Well, I'm actually, well, we can do that at the very end. So
No, 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 we have to do it now.
We have to do it now. Well, I
No,
just
just
wanted to.
I'm gonna give you a chance to promote your website and things like that. But we
Yeah,
covered quite a bit of ground here about social entrepreneurship, the fellowship that you're entering. We talked about
yeah,
SPJ, a lot of your travels and your background.
yeah. I mean, I we could talk about a few other hobbies that I have. I mean,
Maybe I'll
journalism
have you
is
on as another
everything.
guest.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. No, yeah, I think we're good, but it's I just try to keep myself busy with other things too, and I feel like the more diverse experiences you have, the more it will benefit each component. So just the traveling alone, it will help you connect dots and really see a lot of pattern recognition. It becomes really obvious after a while that the more things you learn, right, the more things you will actually see, and it will help you in your writing, it will help you in your personal life, and it's just tremendous what you can do. I think our job really is to take advantage of all the opportunities that life throws at you, and there really are more than we could ever take advantage of. So it's
Wow. Well,
exciting.
you are a
Yeah,
go-getter, that's for sure. And that
yeah.
semester at sea is it sounds very special. Maybe someday you'll go back as a teacher
Wow,
or
wow, that's
entrepreneur.
it's so timely that you said that. I took a note here this morning. You can see it here, and every semester they have a position. It's called the communications coordinator. So it's
Oh,
for journalists, and he writes blog posts, he takes pictures, and he just really conveys the stories that transpire on the ship to a larger audience, to alumni, to parents. I mean, whoever really. So, and because there are a lot of exciting things happening on the ship. I mean, just last fall they went to Cuba for the first time in I think as many as 10 years. And then after that, as you probably know, the U.S. government actually just they renegotiated the ties with the Cuban government, and that came after that. So I feel like semester at sea many times at the bleeding edge of world politics and those kind of things. So anyway, so this communications coordinator position is extremely hard to get. I applied for the last one, and they said they had really seasoned journalists from Reuters and the New York Post and New York Times even apply. So they just encouraged me to keep applying, and I'm already visualizing. I know in a few years down the line, I will work on the ship, and I will write some stories while traveling the world. It's a very special opportunity, and yeah, so that's one way where I can go back to the program and then do it again in a different
good for
setting. But
you. And we all know you just got to be persistent
yeah,
with those opportunities. So good for you.
yeah,
Definitely be in touch and let me know
for
when you're
sure.
back, because then maybe I could be a reporter covering you reporting on it. So
Yeah,
I could,
I think
you
that's
know,
definitely a trend. Media covering
covering
media.
media. A
Yeah, that's
little
something that's becoming more
self-serving,
and
but
more.
that's okay.
Yeah,
Well, hey,
yeah.
in this segment now, Ben, I'd like to do something called Jennifer's 5 W's and an H. This,
Nice.
of course, structured after the who, what, where, why, when, and how of good news writing. I will
Hmm.
ask you a few questions that require a good memory or a one-word response or whatever comes to mind, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So let's start.
sure. Let's
So
do
Ben,
it.
tell us, who was your first grade teacher?
First grade. Wow, I can picture her. I know Frau Röske. Frau Röske. It's a German. Miss Röske. Yeah.
Okay.
First
She
grade.
brings,
Yeah.
she brings a smile to your face, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
remember one quick thing that I remember her for saying, we have the unique opportunity to experience the turn of a millennia, and that yeah, and I just remember that because it's true. I think only every what like 20th generation actually gets to experience that. Maybe in the future more because we grow older, our lifespan is increasing. But still, I thought, wow, that's true. It's actually rare. So anyway, yeah,
what
that's
year was it when you were in first grade?
so that must have been 1993. Yeah.
Okay, now we can do the math and figure out how old you are. You like
Yes.
that backdoor way of asking you how old you are?
Yes. Yeah. That's like that.
Okay, next question. What was your nickname in high school or college?
Okay. So I used to be called by my last name in Germany, which I wasn't really fond of that. But then that was just for a little bit. I just remember when I went to college in the US, I also played football. But then also I was a foreign exchange student in Texas for a year. And then they just called me Germany or Bathke. So for the lack of just trying to remember my name, I don't know, especially on the team, on the football team. And then they also pronounced my last name and made me sound like I'm the key to a bathroom. So Anyway, I got used to it, although I repeatedly told them how it's pronounced, and I actually prefer to be called by my first name, by my given name. But anyway, so that's kind of the story. I don't have a special nickname. Benny is what most of my German friends and family members call me,
Okay.
actually.
All right. When did you first realize you wanted to be a journalist?
Hmm. I I don't know if there was ever a moment. It was more a series of events. And again, what I said earlier is just I thought that journalism would cover many of my interests, or at least more interests than other professions or other fields that I wanted to venture into. So I figured because in journalism you can really do a lot. You can cover a lot of different subjects and beats, and that way really quench your thirst for a lot of different things you want to do. And again, I'm a generalist, so it was really hard for the longest time to figure out what I want to do. And I'm still have a thousand ideas and things I want to work on, but then it's important to prioritize. But yeah, there was never a time I just realized that with journalism, I can learn a ton about different subjects, about different things, and really, yeah, because I'm a generalist, do a lot of stuff, a lot of different things. It never gets boring.
All right. Next
Yeah.
question is our where.
Mm.
Ben, where were you on 9/11?
Right. So it was definitely a flashbulb memory, as they call it, for me. And I was in Germany. I was actually at home in the afternoon. So in Germany, we're 7 hours ahead, right, in Europe. And or New York time was 5 hours ahead. And I was illegally, my parents didn't want me, but I was watching TV in the afternoon on my own, although I wasn't supposed to. And then yeah, I just happened to watch a news channel, and then there it happened. And that was early afternoon again in Germany, and I was remember it extremely vividly. And I was 14 years old, and I had been to the World Trade Center just 5 years before that in 1996. So that was the first and only time before 9/11 that I've been to New York. And I actually that night, my parents and we looked at the pictures and even the video recording that we had from those days, and it just brought back all these memories, and that was just contributed to remembering even more vividly. And then I shared it with my friends next day in school, and it was a very, I think, all around the world, it was a very intense traumatic experience, and I remember it very vividly, and it was like one of those flashbulb memories. But yeah, I was watching TV illegally. Yeah,
Illegally.
I wasn't
Okay.
supposed to, so it was just
Okay. Naughty, naughty. Okay.
yeah.
We'll shift gears a little bit here.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important that young people go into the profession of journalism?
Sure. So it matters because journalism needs to be have fresh blood. It's not like old people can be innovative or seasoned onto veterans, but
Thank you. Come on,
right.
not old
No,
people,
no,
but
no, but
seasoned,
no,
seasoned veterans.
season. I
Be
corrected
nice. Be
myself
nice.
there. It's just have fresh perspectives and then also have them work together. Different seasoned entrepreneurs who bring different things to the table as young people. So and and also because more and more I feel like people are more looking for things that are more where they know that it's higher, it's more likely, well, they make some more money, it's more financially stable, because in the 21st century it is financial stability kind of requires flexibility, and then with a job in journalism, especially as a freelancer, that maybe even now tougher than it used to be because there are fewer staff jobs and so forth. So that even so that's even more important that for young people to become journalists, because I feel like there are a few factors, a few things that have been happening that could discourage young folks from really following their curiosity and becoming journalists, because they feel like it may be not as financially rewarding, or maybe I won't have the same financial projections as a career in finances or in other professions. So it's important to keep encouraging them to do that and find ways for them to actually have a meaningful career, but also being able to support themselves and make ends meet. And yeah, so those are two thoughts I have. And we need more journalists. We need people who know what we need more citizen journalists. We need people taking this seriously, because if people aren't informed about the things that are happening, then they can't engage and they can't participate in the political process. So it's just one of the building fundamental pillars of society is having a functioning free press. And if we don't have enough fresh incoming talent, then that will endanger that important aspect of democracy. So yeah, all these things matter. And I feel like the more young people are interested, the more we support them too. You talked about teaching, right? And that's why that's why I like SPJ so much too, because I feel like they do a great job of engaging young people and supporting them, so that they can become the next generation of journalists.
All right, well, let's use that as a great segue to the final question, which is a how.
Mm-hmm.
How do fellow journalists and editors and student journalists and others that want to hire you, how would they find you on social media?
Yeah.
Or anywhere? I suppose they could come knock on your door in St. Louis, but I think social media might be easier.
Sure. So yeah, my website is just my first name and my last name.com, so benjaminbatke.com. And my Twitter handle is the same, so it's @BenjaminBatke. And I'm actually become an avid tweeter over the last 12 to 18 months. It's become sort of an addiction. So that's something I enjoy doing. And then let's see, what else is there? Yeah, Facebook is the same. I do have my own website, which I use as my blog and portfolio, and I will definitely add this very good video, this interview to the blog. And then let's see, I
Maybe
do
on
have,
LinkedIn? How about LinkedIn as a
yep, same
professional
name. Same name. Yeah, I'm on all different platforms. I try to not spread myself too thin. We talked about technology earlier. I think you can only manage so many platforms well, right? So I try to focus on a few things. I'm not really into many of the other social networks like Pinterest, but not like I'm not going to ever. But right now, Twitter is definitely my main focus, and I do more social Facebook posting now and some videos and just cross promoting and cross platform posting. I do that a lot, and especially then when I'll be a freelancer, I know it's important to promote your own work and have a following in all these networks too. Also LinkedIn. I'm just promoting, pushing out articles on LinkedIn. Not so much, you can't monetize it, but you can just gain followerships and more followers and increase the people who look at your stories and your output.
Nice. Well, it sounds like we will be keeping an eye on your work in terms of that fellowship that comes up in September.
And can I add something about that? I actually have, great, thanks. I actually have a GoFundMe campaign that I just launched, because it is, as a matter of fact, not a fellowship. So it's kind of a bit misleading, at least the title.
Oh,
So,
fellowship.
yeah.
That usually comes with some financial assistance.
Right,
No?
or at least you don't have to pay, right? So yeah, in this case, it's actually a certificate program, to be more exact. So I'm not so sure why they chose this title. I think it may be because it just makes it sound more appealing, and people may not. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Bottom line is, it's actually 16,000 Canadian dollars, and so just to help at least raise
What
some
does that
money.
translate into US dollars? Is that pretty close?
Yeah. It's a little less, fortunately, but it's still way over 10,000 grand, 10 grand. So
Okay.
it's about 12 grand actually, right now with the current exchange rate. So I launched a GoFundMe campaign, and you can find it. It's called Ben's Journalism Fund. So Ben's Journalism Fund, and that's the name of my campaign. So you can find me under gofundme.com/Ben's Journalism Fund. And I'm appreciative of all kinds of donations, large and small, and I hope to actually put it to good use by getting a solid education and then writing about important topics that matter to raise awareness of yeah, also underreported topics. That's something I want to do too. And then yeah, so just if you that's the kind of my rallying cry.
All right. Well, rah rah for Ben.
Thanks.
For BB, I guess, are your initials, huh? Did anyone call you that?
Well, yeah, my full initial is actually BBTB. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got 4 names.
Really? Okay. Well, we'll keep that for the next episode.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Ben, so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching either live or at a later date. This is Jennifer Karchmer on the Transparency Report. You can find more on my website and elsewhere on social media. We appreciate everyone again, and all of those who fight tirelessly for freedom of speech, press, and expression around the world. So thanks again, Ben. Have a great day, and to everyone else.
Thanks for having me. Goodbye, everybody.